Hello everyone, welcome to the mining match. Okay, I'm gonna start by a quick mention of Hispanomine. If you are in the mining industry, you speak Spanish, and you would like to do business in Latin America, you should join Hispanomine. We provide professional services and connections to the Latin American community. Now, I want to talk to you about something that most of the time is ignored or is not spoken about: social. You know, social is inherent of human. We are all social creatures, and we need always to establish relationships. And in the mining industry, social sometimes can be complicated, and it has many layers and many situations where we need to pay attention. So I invited today Elizabeth Freele to tell us about what is about social performance 101 and demystifying the S in the ESG. Hello, Elizabeth. Please, I will allow you to just go ahead and do your presentation and tell us why social is so important in mining.
Okie dokie. Hello, bonjour, hola, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you, Alan and Mining Match, for hosting this 101 on social performance. It's so great to see all the faces today, some familiar and some new. It's always good. So I'll start with introducing myself. My name is Liz. I am a managing partner at Simpact Advisory, a think tank and consultancy that is focused on mining, ESG, and social performance in particular. I'm delighted to chat to you about one of my biggest passions today. Maybe tell you a bit about myself. So I have a background in international development and business, and I spent the last decade in the mining industry, working at both sites and corporate, from junior explorers and developers to mid-tier operators. And in that capacity, I've been supporting community relations, ESG strategy, corporate responsibility, and general sustainability efforts. So before we dive in, I will start with a little high-level primer on ESG because I suspect we have a broad audience. So the term ESG originated in the investor world, and it represents the three factors that help investors measure sustainability performance of a company in their portfolio, fund that they're looking to invest in, that will enable them to assess related future business risks. So it's very much about enterprise risk management. Pressure is growing as investors and executives alike come to understand that sustainability risks are material business risks. As Larry Fink at BlackRock has said again and again since 2019, companies that don't respond to stakeholders and address sustainability risks are encountering growing skepticism from the markets and, in turn, a higher cost of capital. Because these so-called ESG risks affect business resilience. Therefore, they also affect investor confidence. Now, unfortunately, in the mining industry, our performance regarding ESG themes is a bit lagging. At this point in the mining industry's journey, the research shows that we've generally become pretty good at making commitments on these things that we're being asked about, but we aren't yet that good at turning them into action. So we are here today to dive into the S specifically, because it is by far the most misunderstood of the three letters. So you may be wondering, well, what are some of these S issues that investors are looking at when they're making their investment decisions or analyzing performance? It's asking questions like, how are the company's relationship with its workforce, the communities, the countries in which it operates? How well does it navigate the political environment? How inclusive and safe is their workplace? Are there any human rights violations happening in their supply chains or at the hands of their site security force? What are the company's strengths and weaknesses in dealing with social megatrends? Social performance is really about addressing social risk, as well as the opportunities around contributing to sustainable development that come with that, to both reduce harm and to enable value creation. In fact, as some of you may already know, license to operate has been ranked the #1 business risk in our industry for the past 3 years by Ernst & Young in their CEO surveys. And I don't know if any of you saw, but KPMG's latest report, I think it came out last week, is indicating the same. We can see the materiality of ESG in a very pronounced way with, say, example, climate change, severe weather events, water shortages that cause super obvious operational impacts. And it makes sense. The reality is social is just as material, even if it is misunderstood and arguably the more invisible of the ESG. The license to operate reflects society's ongoing accepting of your business activities, and especially local communities. Take note of the word ongoing. It means it's not a one-time thing. It is a constant process to build and maintain, unlike, say, a permit that you get from a central government. Not getting that difference is why almost half of project development delays in our industry are a direct result of social opposition. The industry still struggles a lot with quite high rates of company community conflict. Studies show that the kind of community conflict that causes production stoppages can cost an operating mine up to $20 million a week, for example. So it's no surprise that we are now seeing market and investor recognition of just how material this subject is. There's another study. It shows that 2/3 of junior miners' market valuation is a function of stakeholder relationships, not the deposit. Sorry, geologists. And in 2021, also worth mentioning, local community impact is now seen as the #1 ESG subject facing investor scrutiny, not the #1 S issue, the #1 of all ESG issues. So why is this? We're witnessing a shift of global context around us at a macro level. Public expectations of the relationship between business and society are rapidly evolving. Society is living in a crisis of trust. Social unrest is the fastest growing risk to all business globally. That's not mining, that's all business. The stakeholder capitalism movement, it's grown very strong. And thanks to the rapid digitalization of all of our lives, communities are more connected to information than ever before, with more platforms to get their opinions out, good or bad. Societal expectations continue to grow, to go well beyond zero harm. Zero harm is just a bare minimum baseline now. That's not something that you can be proud of. That's the baseline. Society wants business to contribute much more meaningfully to sustainable global development challenges. In fact, the Edelman Trust Barometer, if any of you follow that most recently, showed 86% of people expect CEOs to lead on societal issues now. And all of this has accelerated since the onset of the global COVID-19 pandemic. It has exposed and created inequalities, COVID winners, COVID losers, and this is exacerbating the pre-existing social volatility that affects business all over the world. So in this context, this idea of a license to operate connects a plethora of ESG issues all in one place. And it's informed by many of these different factors, including S themes I mentioned earlier, that investors are increasingly pulling into their instruments and standards. Basically, how well you and your company manage the breadth of human aspects related to your business activities directly influences community acceptance, your ability to attract top talent, investor confidence, whether your goal is to attract capital, shareholders, buyers. It affects the pace and the success rates of regulatory processes. It affects your market evaluation and the overall public opinion of your company. This is no longer a nice to have or an add-on. Social performance is fundamental, not just because it's smart risk management, but because the rapid pace at which ESG disclosure and reporting requirements are also evolving to include more and more of these factors that all companies are going to have to meet. And yes, it can feel like there are new standards and frameworks capturing these evolving expectations every day. It can be a lot to navigate. And that's precisely why it's not something you can do in an ad hoc fashion. So the S in ESG, it's all about risk management. Social risk is and has long been present throughout the mining life cycle. It varies through phases, and of course, it's context specific. But it generally follows a curve that looks a bit like this on the screen. And the big challenge is that too often the so-called non-technical risk isn't adequately integrated into business strategy. This means that unfortunately, many mining companies are not leveraging a deep, informed understanding of their social and human context to support strategic, evidence-based business decision-making. Their stakeholder engagement efforts are often still reactive or ad hoc, and they're missing red flags in the community or in their labor force, and then they're surprised when protests erupt. Their community investment efforts don't really have a lot of meaningful outcomes. and they're missing out on the associated opportunities to make a positive difference. So the core next question then is, well, how do we get this right? And it's not an easy answer. Sadly, there is no silver bullet that I can give you today. But a great place to start is tackling the social performance challenge in the same way you would any other business area that you take seriously. Because the word performance means there is an expectation that your company will allocate resources, accountabilities, define KPIs, measure against set goals with the same rigor as it does other critical aspects of your business activities. And you do this by employing a systematic, strategic, skilled approach that stretches through from the bottom to the top of your company. Practitioners have a term, social management. You can maximize your performance on the S of ESG by effectively managing the social elements of your risk. Again, as you would any other strategic or governance initiative, with clear goals, a vision, a company-wide strategy, resources, KPIs, strong internal capacity, and a senior commitment to continuous learning. From this stems all these added value outputs on the right, such as the stuff that the reporting stuff that companies are being asked for from the investor world, or positive stories that make you stand out as an employer of choice to tomorrow's talent pool, not to mention improved access to capital, better insurance, and credit ratings. So the management of social risk can leverage a standard plan, do, check, act type of process for the geologists and engineers and management consultants in the room. But of course, it must be customized for sociological context. And scale to the size of your business. And it's important to start this process early in the mining life cycle, as early as you practically can. There's a number of themes, tools, working areas that you want to apply this process to. So for example, you've got internal and external grievance management, broad types of stakeholder engagement, tracking, delivering on all your commitments and compliance, whether they be legal or otherwise, managing negative impacts, maximizing benefits to stakeholders, especially your local communities, such as through community investment, capacity building, partnerships, local procurement, local hiring. You will have a better chance of stopping fires before they start, and your local relationships will be stronger when you begin listening to and aligning with local community priorities. Gathering and acting on relevant data in this kind of robust way also will empower your senior management to make more informed business decisions at an operational and at a corporate level. Another bonus point I should add is also that this is being increasingly asked about in due diligence processes. Okay, so next, an important note about who owns social performance. It's a question that people don't always see eye to eye on, but it's a lot like other aspects of business performance, like health and safety is a really good example. It's everybody's business. A single site level or corporate department might maintain overall responsibility, like community engagement, government relations, human resources, corporate affairs, procurement, legal. But as you can see with some of the examples provided here, it really is a very cross-cutting subject where most people at a given site or office, I'm sorry, my slides keep auto-advancing. This is not me. I'm not sure why. All right. All have a role to play. So when you start exploring these different boxes, it starts to make sense, that broader list of S issues that investors are starting to ask us about, and see why they can be quite so material to business success. Now, the theme of social performance is wide-ranging, but I thought it might be valuable to share with you a sampling of some of the more common existing areas of subject matter expertise in the social performance space that practitioners and leaders work in the mining industry specifically. So now this doesn't cover the whole breadth of ESG themes that investors are asking about, but it is specifically what we've already been focusing on in mining at the face, so to speak, since well before ESG as a trend started to grow in the finance and investment world. When we talk about social performance, it's also worth to take a minute to go over what are the kinds of skills required to excel in this discipline. So I put together this non-exhaustive list of some of the skills that tend to be necessary to lead this work well, that you're going to want to cultivate in yourself or your team members if you're taking on responsibility for social performance in your company, or even if you're evaluating whether a company that you're assessing has the right skills in-house to do the job. So as you can see, there's a lot of so-called softer people-oriented skills here, which are predicted to become increasingly important in the future, both inside and outside the fence. And I thought I might wrap up by bombarding you with a quick and dirty key success factors list in this whole social performance game. So first and foremost, start early. It's never too early in the mining life cycle to put effort into mapping your relationships. Second, resource the activities. Compare the cost of resourcing proactive social management with the multi-million-dollar price tag of a road blockade that stops your operation. 3, trained staff are key. These soft skills that I mentioned, social science knowledge, risk management, business strategy skills, these are paramount to leading social performance efforts. The skills to effectively engage stakeholders can be learned, and anyone engaging with people on behalf of the company should have basic training, including contractors. So companies like ours, Simpact, and many others offer this kind of training if you go looking for it. Fourth, senior buy-in is key. The commitment needs to be endorsed, incentivized, and bought into by the most senior levels of your company if it's really going to be operationalized. 5, stakeholder inclusivity. Map out a variety of internal and external stakeholders and engage them in different ways to ensure you are hearing and understanding their interests, concerns, and drivers. 6, you're going to want to integrate those local priorities. Once you've heard them, ensure that your strategic business decisions at an asset level are aligned with them, as defined by local affected stakeholders, not your assumptions and not generalities. 7, measure and evaluate your data. You want to take a systematic data-driven approach that includes qualitative and quantitative data. It means using established social science tools and KPIs. Avoid using opinions or intuition. 8, it needs to be fit for purpose. An effective management approach has to meet the needs of your company and your community. It's not one size fits all. Make it adaptable to your local context and your team's available bandwidth. 9, make sure your management is comprehensive. So there's a few key areas of social management you want to make sure you for sure have. So we're talking about community grievance mechanisms, stakeholder engagement, compliance and commitment tracking, risk and impact mitigation, and clear efforts to create and sustain community benefits. Finally, 10, business embedding. As I said before, social performance is everyone's business. You want to make sure that you integrate it with other operational strategy approaches at the core of your company. All right, so there's of course only so much that we can get through in 15, 20 minutes today. I could go on for hours, but there are a number of fantastic resources out there to read, to watch, to listen, to hire. There is a wealth of experience and skill available to help your company move the needle on this critical area of business performance. And I definitely encourage you to go look up some of these organizations and resources on the screen to learn more. I also wanted to add that myself and Simpact's other managing partner, Rachel Decker, frequently publish articles. We take on speaking engagements. Of course, we provide training and advisory services. And we do have our very own industry podcast, Prospecting Purpose, where we talk about these kinds of subjects. So keep an eye out for all of that too. And if you have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. This is our specialty at Simpact. If you're not sure you're on the right track and you're interested in the subject, we'd love to chat about how Simpact can help you or your company. You can reach us at the contact info at the bottom of your screen. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions, comments, feedback.